Hello friends, I am Kaniska Kumar before you to explain one of the most powerful poems of William Butler Yeats, that is Leda and the Swan. Leda and the Swan is based on one of the episodes of Greek mythology. As you know, Zeus, the god of the sky, according to the Greek mythology, the creator, the protector, the ruler, the father of the gods, he turned to the form of a huge swan and raped Leda, Princess Leda. And of the union, Helen was born, the most beautiful princess. As Helen eloped with Prince Fiarish, that episode led to the destruction of Troy and the death of the Greek warriors, heroes. So I think you'll enjoy this.
Leda and the Swan. A sudden blow, the great wings beating still above the staggering girl, her thighs crushed by the dark waves, her nape caught in his bill. He holds her helpless breast upon his breast. How can those terrified vague fingers push the feathered glory from her loosening thighs? And how can body laid in that white rush but feel the strange heart beating where it lies? A shudder in the loins engenders there the broken wall, the burning roof and tower, and Agamemnon dead, being so caught up, so mastered by the brute blood of the air, did she put on his knowledge with his power before the indifferent beak could let her drop? This poem is based on one of the episodes of ancient Greek mythology. Zeus, changing himself into a huge swan, raped the princess Leda. Of this union was born Helen, whose elopement with Paris subsequently led to the Trojan War. In form a sonnet, this poem pictures Zeus' rape of Leda and, in conclusion, poses a question. Zeus, by his rape of Leda, begot not only Helen, but also the whole consequence of Helen, the fall of Troy and the death of the Greek heroes. In Leda and the Swan, its theme is the birth of Homeric Greece, which is where his imaginative understanding of history begins. But the sonnet does not borrow its power from the significance of the theme. It was perhaps suggested by Michelangelo's picture in the National Gallery, but it has more than Michelangelo's demonic energy. In the first four lines, the picture is drawn with strong economy. A sudden blow, the great wings beating still above the staggering girl. He holds her helpless breast upon his breast. In the next four, it is not so much seen as felt, though Leda's body. How can those terrified, vague fingers where it lies? Only when the deed has made its own impression of power does he allow his consciousness of history to enter the poem. A shudder in the loins, and Agamemnon dead. The siege of Troy and all the radiant and stormy Hellenic civilization that followed it are not too much to have sprung from that mating. The poem ends with a wondering question: did she put on his knowledge with his power? The first four lines of the poem describe Zeus in the shape of a huge swan descending with great force upon Leda and taking hold of her in order to rape her. The girl is shocked and can hardly maintain her balance. The swan sets its dark waves on her thighs in order to establish a close contact with her flesh. He holds her neck in his huge beak and allows his breast to rest upon hers. The whole action is sudden and totally unexpected by Leda. That explains the sudden blow and the staggering of the girl. Lines 5 to 8 Explanation. These lines describe the sheer helplessness of the girl. Though she is terrified, she yet tries to push the bird away with her fingers. But her thighs are already yielding to his pressure. Her body, gripped tightly by the white bird, already feels and responds to the beating of the heart of that strange creature. Terrified, vague fingers. Leda's fingers are vague because they are buried in the swan's feathers, and they are terrified because she does not understand what is happening. Feathered glory, the glory of Zeus, who appeared in the shape of a bird, that white rush, the sudden attack by the swan, which has white feathers, loosening thighs, yielding thighs. The idea is that Leda, in spite of her shock and terror, is already yielding to the sexual pressure of the swan. Lines 9 to 11 Explanation. A shudder in Leda's loins in the sign of her orgasm. In other words, the climax of the sexual intercourse has been reached. At this moment of the climax, Leda conceives a child. The child will make history. The reference here is to Helen, who, according to the myth, was born of Zeus' union with Leda. On growing up, Helen was married to Menelaus, a Greek warrior. Soon after her marriage, she ran away with a lover, Prince Paris of Troy. The Greeks prepared a huge army which sailed to the city of Troy under the command of King Agamemnon, who was Menelaus' brother. the city of Troy was besieged by the Greek forces and the war continued for 10 years. Eventually, the city of Troy was sacked and Helen restored to Menelaus. During Agamemnon's absence, his wife Clytemnestra developed a love affair with Aegisthus, and when Agamemnon returned home, she murdered him with the help of her paramour. Lines 10 to 11 compress the whole of the story in a few words. Thus, Zeus's act in raping Leda meant the beginning of a whole new chapter in history. In other words, this incident marked the beginning of a new civilization. Lines 12 to 14 Explanation. The question asked in these lines is whether Leda had any inkling that her rape by the Swan would lead to certain historic events. Leda certainly tested the sexual vigor of the Swan, but did she have any intellectual comprehension of the implications of the rape? Perhaps she did have a vague notion of the importance of this event. If she did, her dreadful sexual experience was perhaps compensated for by the knowledge that she gained by this encounter with the supernatural. A noteworthy point here is the changed moods of Zeus and Leda. At the beginning of the poem, Zeus was passionate, while Leda was terrified and helpless. At the end of the poem, Leda is caught up in Zeus's passion, while Zeus becomes indifferent because his passion has spent itself. Thank you very much for understanding this powerful poem.